My Story. This is a show that features real people with real life stories. On this show, we talk about different topics that concern and affect our lives in different ways. These are everyday people and everyday stories, but they have interesting stories which will touch your life and change you. Today on the show, we feature Martha, and with Martha, we're going to be talking about mental health. This is one subject which is rarely talked about. Mental health is approached with stigma by many people, and yet there are many people out there who are affected. And today, as we talk about mental health, I believe and trust that you will learn something. Martha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you on this show today, discussing this very important mental health. So I'll start by asking you to introduce yourself, Martha. Who is Martha, and in what capacity are you on this show today?
Okay, thank you. My name is Martha, as already introduced. I am a social worker and a psychosocial counselor. I'm also very passionate when it comes to mental health.
That's one thing I've known about you, the passion that you have concerning mental health. So when we talk about mental health, already people apprehensive. And I can even tell that before, even if I'm not seeing our audience right now, when people hear mental health, people are already apprehensive and some are saying, okay, what are they really talking about? So I want you to explain to us, what is mental health?
Okay. So I think the apprehension concerning mental health comes from fear. And fear comes from the lack of knowledge, from lack of information. People associate mental health with madness. That person is mad, this person is mad. And this is because in the past we didn't know how to respond to mental health. And also in the past we were limited to one hospital. We only had one hospital at that time. Now we have so many experts that have specialized in mental health. So we have a lot of clinics, a lot of doctors that are able to treat mental health. Okay? And when we talk about mental health, we can either focus on poor mental health or good mental health.
Okay.
So obviously today we want to focus on poor mental health to help people understand what exactly we are talking about. So when we talk about poor mental health, we are looking at the emotional side of somebody's mind. Okay. We're looking at the psychological side of somebody's mind. We're looking at also how somebody can handle the social side of life, because this affects how people handle stress. It affects how people are able to make decisions.
It's just on that one, even biblically,
Yes.
the Bible says, whatever a man, what does it say? As a man thinketh, so is he. In other words, everything that goes on in our minds is what our life eventually becomes.
Yes.
It's interesting that particular area, you're talking about mental health and how it affects every facet of our lives, socially, emotionally, and psychologically. And the Bible actually agrees with you that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So you were saying, we're talking about poor mental health and how it affects our lives, just the surrounding life.
Yes.
Yeah, but let me ask you this question, Martha. Why is there so much stigma when it comes to mental health?
People, because of the lack of knowledge, like I said earlier, people take too much time to get help concerning mental health. You find people want to hide it because they are ashamed. If maybe it's a child, if it's yourself as a man, myself as a woman, you don't want to rush to think there's something wrong with my mind, okay? So when you take too long, you reach a point where there are certain symptoms that are not acceptable to society. Certain symptoms like getting violent, certain symptoms, you find maybe somebody, becomes aggressive, they take off their clothes. So those are the things that people tend to shun away from. Little do they know that the sooner you get help, the quicker you begin to get treatment when you respond quickly. So I think it all comes from fear. Our focus is on fear and not getting help.
How has our culture and our background, because earlier on I heard you say in the past we only had one facility which was dealing with mental health right now. And you say now there are a number of doctors, there are a number of practices, there are a number of hospitals or clinics that are dealing with mental health. How has our culture affected the way we view mental health? Because honestly speaking, if you came to me and say, I think you have a problem mentally, culturally, I don't think, how has it affected?
Yes, people get offended.
Yeah.
People get offended when they are told, I think you need to check yourself, there's a problem. But you see, it all comes down to us beginning to sensitize shows like these, that we need to sensitize the community and society as much as possible to help people to understand that mental health, or should I say mental illness, is a medical condition like malaria. It's a medical condition like whatever disease a person can have, and there's treatment for that. So the truth is that response from society has not been very good, but it's only because people do not have the correct information.
So what are the symptoms? Okay, maybe let me say this. What are the symptoms that someone has mental illness? Because it's not like, okay, of course, we need to get to a place where we normalize the way we look at mental illness, in the same way that we look at someone who has malaria, in the same way that we are actually at a time where someone can admit that they have COVID, but they will not admit that they have a mental illness. What are the symptoms that this person has a mental illness?
Okay, so mental health symptoms are very, very general. They are so wide.
Okay.
And the truth is that we need to be very alert and very sensitive when we're dealing with somebody who we feel, including ourselves. When you think you're sick all the time, you have constant headache, you're tired. Fatigue is one of the major symptoms.
Oh.
Yes. You're tired all the time. You don't want to get up and do anything.
Okay.
You deliberately take leave from work because you're tired. You don't want to, it's difficult for you to go to the kitchen to get a bottle of water, a cup of water, because you are just tired, you want to sleep. If somebody who once had a lot of energy all of a sudden is sleeping too much, there's a problem. Especially if you take that person to the doctor and everything physically is okay. The next thing is to check the mind. If all physical exams come out perfect, the next thing is to check the mind.
You know what? You are saying something very interesting right now, that because there are several times that people have gone to the hospital and they've done all the tests, HBC and all manner of tests, and they don't find anything wrong. And yet physically, you can tell this person is not okay. And now you are saying if we do that, the next thing we should check is the mind.
Yes.
Wow.
We should check the mind. And these are early signs. Like any medical condition, it's important to treat mental health as quickly as possible. So for now, I'll share the early signs of mental illness. Okay. So I already mentioned tiredness and fatigue. As we look at some of these symptoms, let's remember that it has to be out of the ordinary.
Okay.
If somebody has been sleeping for so many years and they continue sleeping, then it's just character for them.
They're just lazy.
Yes.
But not a person like me who's
not
a
some,
workaholic,
yes,
if for you,
if all of a sudden we call you at 12 hours and you're fast asleep, ask you, are you feeling okay? And you say, I'm just tired. The following day I phone you again and you say you're tired, I believe there's a problem. Things are not okay. Yes. So fatigue and constant tiredness, eating too little or too much.
Okay.
It can be one or the other. For somebody who enjoys food, who's always eating, all of a sudden has got no appetite. The first thing we do, if for our children, when they say I'm not hungry, the first thing we do is check the temperature. Is everything okay? But if physically the child is okay, then we need to look at other options. What is causing the loss of appetite in the child? Okay. Other symptoms are feeling body pains, like I mentioned.
So mental illness can actually cause body pains.
Mental illness causes physical symptoms.
Okay.
Yes. That's why if you feel physical symptoms and you find nothing wrong with the body, that's why it's important. A doctor will now say, let's check the mind. Yes.
Okay.
All of a sudden, somebody who has never smoked cigarettes, has never been interested in alcohol, all of a sudden wants to take alcohol, that's also a sign of something wrong in the mind. Because people tend to resolve to some of these things when they have an issue. Somebody is feeling stressed, somebody is feeling like they can't cope anymore. So they resort to taking alcohol and taking too much alcohol. You find somebody who has never touched a cigarette is now a chain smoker from nowhere. You know that there's a problem. When habits are out of character, there's always a problem. It doesn't come from nowhere. It always comes from somewhere. Yes.
Okay. Serious. But listen, I think traditionally in Zambia, what we have gotten used to is if you have body pains and you're feeling tired and all of that, rush to the hospital and be treated. And especially that we are coming from an advent of malaria, now people even do self-treatment, which is not advisable. They will rush to the nearest chemist, pharmacy and buy Coartem, whatever it is, and administer. They are still not getting okay. Anxiety and depression, is that a symptom or a mental illness as well?
Okay. Anxiety and depression are mental conditions as well. You can call them illnesses as well, yes. They have their own symptoms. Anxiety is a major challenge, actually, in Zambia. And a lot of people don't recognize it as a problem, okay? Symptoms of anxiety, things like fear. You know, somebody can fear a simple thing like walking outside of the house. People become paranoid. They think if I walk out of the house, the tree will fall on me, something like that. Or if I open the door will burn my finger. Things that to an ordinary person will seem ridiculous, but these are real issues when somebody has got anxiety. These are real fears when somebody has got anxiety. When somebody has got is suffering from depression, okay? There are what we call triggers. Okay? So, for instance, if I suffer from depression and I go for a job interview and I'm pretty excited about that job and I'm very sure that I'm going to get that job and then I don't get that job. So you find something like that can trigger that depression. The following day I'm in bed, I don't feel like getting up, I don't feel like eating, I don't feel like doing anything because what happened triggered that depression in me if I'm a patient of depression. So it's important for family members, for neighbors, for society, for friends to be supportive of people with mental health conditions because they need support. Imagine somebody who's sleeping the whole day, the whole night. If they don't eat, if you don't force them to eat, they will not have a meal that day, and that makes a condition worse because now for sure, from the mind, the body also starts to feel sick because there's been no water in the body, there's been no food in the body.
Is there a particular age group or gender which is most vulnerable to mental illness?
No.
Okay.
There are actually some children that are born with mental conditions, certain mental, like anxiety. Some children are born, children fear different things. Yeah. So, and if we don't understand as parents, we start forcing a child. Just do this, but we don't realize how much this thing is affecting a child, So we need to be very sensitive. When we notice a child has got a certain pattern, let's investigate, let's do more. If we don't understand, let's get help. There are so many, like I mentioned, there are so many specialists who understand these things better. So, unfortunately, mental illness is not limited to anybody. It can affect a child. A 5-year-old can suffer from depression.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I never knew that. A 5-year-old child can suffer.
Imagine that.
What would make a 5-year-old child go through depression?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that makes it even more serious.
Yes.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely
so
nothing.
Where is the depression then? they are born with it, or
some
what?
children, some mental illnesses, yes, run in families.
Okay.
Some run in families. Some you find you are the first person to suffer from that condition. Like I said, there's so many triggers for.
That's my other area of interest. What causes?
Okay.
What are the triggers for mental illness?
So let's talk more about the triggers.
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, the first one, some children are born with mental illness. Okay. It's in the blood. Maybe if I suffer from anxiety, maybe I can pass that condition over to a child that I've given birth to. It happens.
You see, that is very, very, very important, because I think if you notice a pattern in the family, it's very important that you're equipped with knowledge. You start looking out for it in the next generation, in the children and the children's children. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, and then I also, it's important, I realize that our doctors are extremely overwhelmed. So in most cases, they don't take time to explain to a patient what is going on with them, because I cannot explain to my child what I don't understand. Okay. If I'm just given treatment for this, it will be very difficult if I'm seeing the same symptoms in my child. So it's important, I would like to urge, I'm not a doctor, and I would love to urge doctors to take time to explain conditions to their patients so that they're able to treat themselves properly, and also to explain to a child when they see that there's a certain pattern in the family. Yes. I'll talk about the triggers. Certain mental conditions in adults come from trauma that was experienced as a child.
Okay.
So this trauma can be loss of parents. You find some children, they'll lose parents at the age of 10. And if counseling was not done, they are not able to just handle things in society as they grow up. They're not able to keep a job. They're not able to live well with other people. Life becomes too hard for them.
And culturally, I think as a people culturally, once someone passes on and someone is deceased, I don't think we are very good culturally at helping that person deal with the loss of a parent or a significant other. And you're saying sometimes the loss of a parent can affect a child in their, somebody in their adulthood, and you begin to see this challenge.
And it's true, we don't realize how the loss of parents can affect the child, because this child is now wondering what happens to me tomorrow. So it's important to take time. Let's take time as adults to counsel children when they lose their parents and encourage them so that they can know that they still have a future, they still have more that they can do, and they also have a support system. The key is really a support system, to know that there are people there that can help me if something goes wrong. So other than loss of a parent, there's also child abuse. For a long time, child abuse was being kept quiet. You find the family is paid off. Okay, it's paid off to not take this matter to the police, to not take this matter to court. But we don't really realize how that child has been affected. And children keep quiet because they're listening to what their parents will say. Okay? So they are quiet until this child is 20, 25 years old. This child now wants to maybe get married. And this lady, bear in mind that even men get abused, okay, sexually as children. So this person is behaving in a very strange way, okay, in a manner that you can't even explain. We won't remember that because of what happened when this child was 3-4 years old, this child has had to live with what happened to them. So it really affects them in a way that they need help later on. And the worst thing is when you're carrying something over the years, it gets heavier and heavier. So child abuse and trauma, neglect, some of the causes of mental health. Substance abuse is the worst. Okay. It's the worst. You know, when you are being told that it's okay to take alcohol, it's okay to have a cigarette, you're not told the consequences. We are not told that you might be that 1 out of 10 that cannot handle alcohol.
And of late, I have noticed that substance abuse has really gotten out of hand. Young people are indulging themselves in alcohol, taking alcohol to excesses. People are not smoking traditional cigarettes anymore, but there's an introduction of shisha on the market right now. And a lot of people are smoking shisha, they're taking shisha. And you're saying you may not know that you may be the 1 out of 10 that end up with a mental illness because of substance.
And in this case, when we talk about mental illness, we're talking about you getting addicted. Mm-hmm. Because addiction has got some mental illness consequences.
Okay.
They are what, in order for people to understand, where you say you take this shisha, tomorrow you are behaving like you're mad. I'm using the word mad so that people can understand. But we're trying to remove the word mad also from mental health because it has a stigma to it. Yes. So we respond differently to drugs. The truth is that there's some people who take cocaine for 10 years and they're fine. But for you, it's that one hit. It's that one hit and you've lost everything, you know. Your mind is gone. Your mind is completely gone. You can't function anymore because you are now addicted to this drug.
You know, you are as you are talking, I'm reminded of a high school friend I had. He was a very gifted soccer player, you know, very gifted footballer. And I think he got a scholarship. He kept on going, I think, to Europe and ended up, I can't remember where, but he was a very gifted guy. So I remember one time I was driving and I parked somewhere. There was a rubbish heap in front of me. As I was parked there, I saw someone picking from that rubbish heap, and he was putting on a soccer jersey for one of these English Premier League teams. So I picked up my phone and called one of my friends. I said, do you know where this gentleman is? You know, because it had been like 15, 20 years since I last saw him. And my friend said, oh, no, he's actually back. He had gone to this place and he got a scholarship, but he came back, and when he came back, he came back actually in cuffs. Because when he traveled, when he went out of the country, he got into drugs, into cocaine, and it messed up his mind. And then he told me, he spoke in Nyanja, he said, Amapezeka paso so adoba papishala. Meaning you can find him in such a place, he picks from rubbish dumps. And it clicked that was the guy that I was looking at that particular time. It was because I was able to recognize him, and I thought that's him, that I called my friend who told me this. So yeah, young people sometimes, even older people don't think that there's anything wrong with substance abuse, but it can actually lead to that. Some of the triggers for mental illness.
There's one that I think we should spend a little bit of time.
Okay.
Social isolation.
Okay.
And loneliness.
Oh. Yes. Social isolation and loneliness. Yes. Okay.
It's a trigger for mental health. You know, we need a lot of programs that keep the youth busy.
Okay.
So that they don't feel like they are missing out on life.
Okay.
Because when they feel like they're missing out of life on life, this is where they find themselves indulging in drugs, in alcohol, okay, in substance abuse. They find themselves in the wrong company, okay, being used for wrong things. You know, the youth are the ones with energy, so they're the ones that can be used for all the wrong things, okay? Women, we need more women programs. It's not just kitchen parties, you know, we need programs that will help people to have proper intellectual discussions.
So it's actually, wow. So it's very dangerous to be alone.
It's very dangerous. It's important to interact, but the correct interaction also, you know. So it's very dangerous to be alone, but also to interact with wrong company, you know. Bad company corrupts good morals. Yes.
Wow.
Including men. Because men have, I don't know if I can say this.
Please,
you know,
go ahead.
this ego thing, you know, ego. So meaning a man won't admit when they're lonely.
Because that's what I wanted to also say, that for you as women, yes, when you have an issue, you easily share.
Yes.
You easily run to your sister. And by sister, I don't necessarily mean someone you were born with. Yes. But you run to your friend and share with them, be it a personal issue, financial issue, marital issue, something to do with children, because like children can also be something else. But when you have an issue as a woman, you will run to another woman and share with her. But for us as men, we don't. We keep it to ourselves. And, I would deal with it myself. And for me, I can confidently say, that things like depression, those are things that I've personally gone through. I've gone through depression, and I know how terrible it can be. I know what it can do, to you. But for us as men to open up to the next person and be able to say, I am going through depression, it's very, very, very difficult. But now tell me, Martha, is mental illness treatable?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely, it's treatable, and the earlier, the better.
Okay.
We really need to break the silence when it comes to mental illness. We need to break it because you see these symptoms like fatigue and eating more and eating less, they cause other problems. So the longer you are keeping it to yourself, like I've said, especially for a man, because men are the ones who struggle to share. Open. Yes, to share. Women, I think, we're sharers.
By
we
nature.
Share as much as possible.
By nature.
Yes. So if you can go to and see a doctor as soon as possible, okay? People worry that when they share something, you'll be exposed, okay? This person, your neighbor, will be talking about you, saying that you're mad, that you're not okay. But there is confidential treatment. And now you have options. There's a variety of places. Please look them up. Social media is very busy. There are a variety of institutions, a variety of hospitals that are offering treatment for mental health. Yes, it can be treated, okay? There are 3 ways that mental illness can be treated. The first one, like I've said, is medical care from a doctor. The second one is through psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is a form of counseling that addresses the issue, okay? Say you're on treatment, we now talk about your mental illness triggers. When we talk about those triggers, we now start to address how can you handle them. Because we don't want to encourage avoidance. You can't avoid problems in life. You can't. So we now focus on how you handle those problems. And the third one is, how can I put it? We look at the best option of therapy for you. For children, we even have different types of play therapy, okay? When we're trying to find out what exactly is causing the child to behave in a certain manner, okay? So the third one is called the creative therapy. So that one is designed depending on the problem, depending on the individual.
Okay. We're coming towards the end of our discussion on this very important subject. I want you to talk to someone out there, number one, who suspects or thinks that they could have a mental illness issue, or they know someone who they think has a mental illness issue.
So if you feel like there's something wrong in the mind, okay, our focus is on the mind. If you feel there's a problem, there is help out there, okay? You can start by seeing your general practitioner, go to any hospital and see your doctor. Explain your symptoms to your doctor. Your doctor will be able to refer you to a specialist that can handle what you are feeling. You are never alone. Do not feel alone because you are feeling there's a problem. There are counselors, well-able counselors, that you can share whatever it is you're experiencing in confidence. They are not going to repeat what it is that you're going to share with them. I also want to talk to families. I want to talk to the community. Let's not call our relatives mad. Our relatives are not mad. Our children are not mad. They have a mental condition that can be helped. It's up to us to give support. Let's not get tired of helping. We need to help each other. We need to support each other.
Okay. And Martha, you are a counselor also at Marriage Counseling Ministry International.
Yes.
What do you do at Marriage Counseling Ministry International, and where are you located, and how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so I work for a marriage counseling center. We counsel couples before they get married, and we also counsel couples that did not receive premarital counseling. We also counsel couples that have challenges. Now, our society tells us that we should not talk about our marital problems, but these are some of the triggers of mental health. You need to be able to talk to somebody that you can confide in about what you're going through. It doesn't matter what it is. And here at marriage counseling, you are in a safe place. You're in a safe place. You will never be judged about whatever has happened in your marriage. So personally, I'm a marriage counselor. I also handle any type of counseling, whatever, whether it's child counseling, educational counseling, I cover all that.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for making an appearance on this show and for sharing your knowledge. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of responses from our viewers and from our audience. And I believe that we're going to have a follow-up discussion to this one, because the issue of mental health and mental illness is a very, very, very serious issue. Well, our viewers, that was our show and discussion for today. On My Life, My Story, our guest was Martha Msenge, who is a social worker and somebody who's very passionate about mental health. Join us in our next episode as we look at a different subject. But remember to subscribe to this channel, Chris Well, and click the bell notification so that when a new show is up, you will be able to see it. So subscribe to this channel, bell notification, so that when a new show is here, you'll be able to see it. So God bless you, and we'll see you in the next show.